So a lot of you are shareholders, basically, since we've been public for now, what, 3 years? And you're going to see we have a lot. There's a lot new, but still, I'm going to go through the presentation because we do have a lot of new shareholders which are looking at this for the first time. So to everybody, especially to new shareholders, I say, well, welcome, and we got good things to say. So, you know, it sounds basic. I got to start with the basics because not everybody knows this. When I talk about placer gold, what's placer gold? Well, placer gold is simply it's gold that has been dislodged from a hard rock source, either through erosion or forces of nature. And the concept of gold is quite simple. You know, we're looking at these placer deposits, and we're asking a very simple question: where'd the gold come from? And we believe that if you trace back from where the gold came from, you might hit upon its source and perhaps a nice big discovery, hard rock discovery, or low gold discovery. This is one of the large nuggets I was taking this. It had the good fortune of making a cast for it before it was melted down. This was hanging in the mayor's office. So thanks to the Mr. Mayor for letting me hold it. And what you're seeing here is an actual photo that we have on file of the gold nuggets that was produced in the 1960s dredging operation. More about that later. So when I say placer to hard rock, there's been the last couple of years, there's been renewed interest in the placer districts. Again, finding new discoveries has been getting more and more scarce as time has been coming on the last few decades. The rate of people have to find new ways. So placer districts, places where there used to be placer gold production, has now gained interest as basically new places to look for new gold discoveries. And so far it's worked. You know, a good example here is the Klondike, the famous Klondike we know in the Yukon. About 6 years ago, there was the Klondike's been known for a long time, but it's always been overlooked and sort of ignored because, well, they never found a source, so there's no source. Well, it takes somebody to really, put their nose to the grind and make a discovery. So somebody did look into white gold, found the white gold project. Again, they looked at the prospector Sean Ryan looked at old historical documents. He found an old document about an old miner who was talking, an old placer miner who was talking about a gold vein that he saw, a quartz vein that had gold in it. And so he went looking for that, and long story short, made a discovery, and it was bought out by Agnico Eagle. And so basically now every major gold company partnered up with a junior in the Yukon and also in the Cariboo in the BC to do placer to hard rock exploration. So if you look at what's interesting is that, the main placer districts in Canada, there was 3 of them. There's some other minor placers in other places, but the 3 big ones was in BC, the Cariboo, which was Cisco bought, the famous Klondike, of course. But before the Cariboo and the Klondike, there was the Beauce, overlooked. And as you can see, we're the only ones there. So it's our advantage. So the Beauce, what's special about it? Well, many things. It has many firsts. As you can see, this is it shows where our 2 properties are. The Beauce it's the largest placer gold district in the eastern part of North America. Really is. And again, totally overlooked. You'll see for the reasons why. But this is home to many firsts, and you'll see why we're interested in this region. The first gold rush in Canada started right there. Many firsts. The first gold mining company started right here. Actually, behind you, I got one of the original stock certificates. Pretty cool. And there was, in some areas, especially our Beauce Gold property, there was a continuous industrial scale placer mining operation for 50 years. And of course, a big dredging operation in the 1960s. And you could see it's really what we have here. We have a corridor. We have a placer gold corridor of 150 kilometers, more or less about. And if you notice, gold anomalies everywhere, past placer gold production, totally overlooked. There's no operating mine. Now, people ask me, for such huge gold anomalies, why isn't there a gold mine now? Why isn't the Beauce Val d'Or, for example? Well, it's just a circumstance of history. Somebody called it, it was the biggest blunder in Canadian mining history. And there's a lot of text here, but I'll just verbalize it, but feel free. This, by the way, shareholders and attendees, you can download this presentation off our website. It was uploaded this morning, the new version. So please feel free to do that. So what the blunder was is that simply is that when gold was discovered, when the tale of a young girl who was walking her horse across the Gilbert River and she stumbled across something shiny and turned out to be a big nugget, news of that spread really fast, as all placer discoveries do, gold discoveries do, really. And so when it happened the descendants of the Lord, the seigneury there, okay, little Canadian history there is that basically when Quebec used to be New France before Canadian invasion, the land system was a seigneurial system, lords. Think of like an old version of a Downton Abbey. And so basically the Lord was the loaned all the land, and he had tenants that would work for the Lord, you know, to pay an annual fee. Long story short is that after the British invasion, for sure, you know, there was no more seigneurs. But the great-grandchild of the seigneury of Rigaud-Vaudreuil, which is now a big chunk of the Beauce today, comes out saying, says, yeah, we're not lords anymore, but you know what? Our family always kept the rights on the, we don't own the land anymore, but we always kept the rights on gold and silver. And so when he heard the discovery of gold, he rushed to London and was able to get the patent rights. They gave him the patent rights. Patent rights basically is a rights. It's an old form of saying, you know, you own the gold, you own gold and silver and other precious metals on your land. So, of course, gold was discovered, gold rush came in, lots of miners. And it was a big course for decades. This lasted in course. Now, of course, you know, the Quebec government back then, you know, obviously you can't have each descendant of each seigneury come out of nowhere and monopolize all natural resources of Quebec. Wouldn't work. So that's where they came up they came up basically with the new Mine Act, the Gold Mine Act. And what that is, why is this act important? Because the claiming system that we know today in Quebec, Canada, and really in North America was all adopted by what happened there in Quebec. So to rectify the situation, they had the Mine Act, the Gold Mine Act, which became the Mining Act. But in 1881, very stubbornly, the Deliri family basically persisted, and even though there was conflicts at that time, even armed conflicts, there's even a story about how the miners and families, it was like a fight under the tunnels. Maybe I'll make a movie one day with that. But anyways, they persisted. The government at the time tried to squash the old patents, stealing the patents of the Deliri Chosgrove family. They went to court and they won. The judge upheld their patent rights. So what happened is that in Southern Quebec, the Beauce and a good part of the District, Eastern Townships, Southern Quebec property owners had the rights on gold, silver, and basically metals if you own the land. And companies were for 100 years were not able to stake, to stake for claims, to do exploit. Simple as that. So that's why. So there was a stagnation in exploration in all of Southern Quebec. And then when Quebec government took back the rights in 1985, well, there was a staking rush. Noranda was there, Noranda Exploration, and many other companies of its day back in the late 80s. And then, you know, then it's what, you know, then .com comes along, BRIEX, lost interest, time flies, we're here today. And we're the major company, and our advantage is that basically we were able to take, you know, the best two localities in the Beauce, the Megantic and the Beauce Gold property in Saint-Simon-les-Mines, Gilbert River. We have that. So I believe I got two of the best, most favorable districts of the placer gold. A bit of the geology, you know, it gets a bit technical, but basically long story short, it's a young geology. It's a geology resembles a lot. It's part of the Appalachian. It goes from there to Gaspé, all the way to basically, you know, Nova Scotia and even the southern part of Newfoundland. In fact, it's a relatively younger geology compared to the Canadian Shield. What's piquing a lot of people's interest all along that corridor is that it's a new place to look for. A good example is look at Newfound Gold. Some people might know that, you know, they got even up to market cap of $2 billion on great drill holes. I mean, they're part of a similar type of young geology, and very interesting enough, very nuggety effect too in their drilling. So wherever we're finding gold mineralizations, we find it basically at fault contacts. That's why you're going to see in this presentation, faults are really important. They're a great indicator. When there's a contact between two types of geologic formation, in this case, sedimentary rock, volcanic rock, they meet in the middle. That's where gold tends to accumulate, long story short. So our first main property, our flagship property, is the Beauce Gold property located in Saint-Simon-les-Mines. Great name, that's the name of the town, Saint-Simon-les-Mines, which is about an hour south of Quebec City, 3 hours drive from Montreal, all highway, easy access. What was particular about this property, again, this is where the ground zero was. The first gold rush in Canada was right here. The first gold mining company was here. The major nuggets came from this section of the placer channel. What you see in front of you here is the placer channel. It's a 6 kilometer long placer channel. And again, the question is, where did this placer gold come from? That was mined. And mind you, right around here, this corridor here, which I'm circling with my mouse here, I mean, there was industrial scale mining for 50 years of placer right here. And then shorter term, then there was Yuba dredging over here. So this is where our interest. We have all the claims here. We have a big claim footprint that we're pretty sure that the source, should be within our perimeter of claims. Very special is that we don't just have claims; we also own real estate. Because since it was remember, you had to own the property if you wanted to exploit the gold. That's how it was. So even though you couldn't do a claiming for 100 years in the area, in the 1960s, the Beauce Placer mining company bought the land and bought the whole placer channel land and started dredging for gold in the 1960s. So that always stayed until that real estate always stayed in the hands of one public company after another. Time goes by, and then it was there was an empty shell. It was stuck in an empty shell. It's called Poniagas Mines, which was bought out by Galaxy Lithium One, which became Galaxy Lithium, and still around today. And I told them, well, you guys are into lithium, not gold. You mind getting rid of this real estate? So we bought the real estate, and that's what we have. That's why we have, which is a big advantage because in Southern Quebec, a lot of the exploration we're doing, and hopefully even potential exploitation, if we make a discovery, at least part of it might be on our land, on real estate we own. It simplifies things. It really does. So a bit of the history of the property again, just to give you an idea of the outlay. So most activity was within basically about a 2 kilometer stretch of a 6 kilometer long placer channel. Again, just a really quick one. Everybody thinks when we're thinking placer, we're thinking guys panning in the river. It was never that. If you can see to your right here, the placer channel sits in a sonoriferous till with a glacial till overburden. At times it could be, from 15 to 40 meters covering. So what the old timers did is that they did shafts and they did tunnels. And the gold sits in just 2 meters basically of the auriferous till of a saprolite. And they would just scrape that up, bring it up to surface and wash it. So at first, of course, it was all done by hand, and then steam power came in, the St. Onge mine in the 1970s. The first electric power plant in the Beauce was made to electrify the mine in 1910. So for 50 years, it was continuous major production, but everything stopped in World War I, and then never really took off up until the 60s, where there was a placer operation right here. Interesting enough, again, that placer operation in the 1960s was a giant dredging operation. You see, instead of doing shafts and tunnels, the concept here was, well, you know what? Let's do massive earthworks to strip the overburden to get to the gold. So that's what they did. And just note, no, the Yuba dredge is not in a river. These are artificial flotation ponds, which are great to float the dredge and at the same time to wash and process the gold. But they had large tools. They had the drag lines to do the stripping, and a floating factory Yuba dredge to dredge and separate the gold. So yeah, that went on for about 4 years, and then it's just it wasn't the proper tool. The clay when it would do bucket plugging, and the thing just kept breaking down. And after a certain point, it went really well when the overburden wasn't deep, but as the overburden gets deeper, it just, which wasn't the right technology. So here we go. So the flame is placer gold. I have to say historical because it is. It wasn't measured by us, but it's still there. It was drilled in the after when the claims available for claiming in Southern Quebec in the late 80s. Well, Tony Agus was there. They did a big drill program. When we were a predecessor company, the pressure company of HBQ Silicon, which was Eurogold, we did some sonic drilling, and we did validate some of the old data. There is a placer channel that's there. There is a gold deposit that's there because of the nugget effect. That's why we estimate we have position target between 60 to 300,000 ounces. So this is interesting. It's there. We'd have to go back study it, but we decided to focus for now to find out where this came from versus focusing on the placer deposit. But it's there. We might come back to that later. So here's the problem we had there. The placer deposit has been well defined. It's well known. However, it was always the old miners there was always questioned. Basically, it was always exploitation versus exploration. And because of that, there's even though the placer deposit is well known, measured, we even drilled the placer gold. There's almost the data, the geology data that surrounds this placer deposit. It was virtually non-existent. We had to start from scratch. But we've come a long way. So it's been what, just a little more than 3 years now. And we've been able to piece this together. So I've put together 7 milestones that we did, which I think is leading us closer to a discovery. And mind you, all we knew was a placer deposit, all the data surrounding the geology, nothing. And there's a thick tail overburden on top of that. So it just wasn't readily available, this information. So the first hint that something's going on, it's when we were doing drilling for Eurogold. We did sonic drilling. So again, we went there we were guilty of the same companies in the past. It was, well, there's a placer deposit. Let's go measure it because maybe we can mine it and make money right away. So but as we were drilling this, we did sonic overburden drilling, which means that you're not drilling in the hard rock, you're drilling in the overburden, and you're stopping when you get to the bedrock. And it was just to get part of that 2 meter auriferous till and to measure if there's gold in it. And then there is, so there was gold grains in almost every drill hole. But in looking at the grains, we saw something's happening here. There was a misconception that this was an old alluvial deposit, which was buried by glaciation after. But when we looked at the gold grains and the gold nuggets, they were pristine and they haven't traveled long. And so we know that something's going on here. And if there's a source, it can't be that far. That's where it all started. That was an important milestone right there. Just, getting rid of that misconception, not alluvial gold, this gold, came from a hard rock source, not too far. But still, again, a thick overburden. So what do we do? Well, let's start with geophysics. And that, again, modern geophysics was applied for the first time in 150 years on that property. And, and it revealed something really interesting that, yeah, there is a fault line that crosses all along the strike of the placer channel, which seems to be coming up right underneath the placer channel. And again, we found out that the fault line is the contact between 2 geological units of volcanic rocks and sedimentary rocks, the Beauceville Formation and the Saint Vital Formation. And also is that by studying the gold that we got from one of the trenches and also the gold we got from the drilling that Eurogold did of the placer channel, we found that, gold is gold, but there was certain peculiarities where it is that the placer gold versus the gold from hard rock has the same silver content, the same pathfinder minerals, which of the minerals that surrounds the gold. So again, we find that there's a source, there's a match. The placer deposit, hard rock gold, there's a match there. It's really important, and it also indicates that that it's his brother, its twin brother, is not too far away. Now this was a lot of fun. We stumbled upon that. That 1960s dredging operation, of course, they didn't do this. They didn't invest without, of course, knowing whether if it was worth it or not. And obviously, that there was indications that they drilled, but there was no data to be found in the government records of the drill. So last year, we stumbled upon an amazing find. It was somebody from the town, St. Simon, whose grandparents owned the general store, and his uncle worked on the dredge. And when the dredge stopped, the field office in Beauceville which is about like 5 kilometers from the property in Beauceville. He cleaned up the office and he had all these documents. And the gentleman who gave us, who sold us these documents, we had good fortune. He was a collector. He collects antiques. He even recreated the parents' general store in his basement, like a mini museum with all pristine condition things. When I saw that, I got really excited, and I knew what he had was good. And sure enough, yeah, he pulled out these very well preserved documents that were in filing cabinets, not touched for 50 years. And it was very, very revealing. Very revealing. Basically, it gave us more in depth of where along the placer channel had higher concentrations of placer. Higher concentration of placer can mean basically near closest to a source. So it was very handy for us as a set of data. And again, it's another set of data which can help us later on if we want to go back and measure the placer deposit to see if it's any pockets of economic gold. So this was important basically last year. The main work we did last year is that we did trenching and of course the drilling. And the trenching and drilling confirmed that there's gold in the system, in bedrock. And that's really important. So again, this was the first time in 150 years, no, not 150 years, because there was a report of hard rock gold back in 1880. We got to go that far back, really. So we're the first one to confirm that, that we see visible gold from rock in the bedrock. So we confirm it, that, we're close to something, that, there is a structure near the placer channel, which has gold. And our trenching and drilling confirmed that, and that's great news, yes. Well, maybe, people are gonna, I'm sure that, if I would see everybody was saying, what about the drill? Yeah, well, we did a test drill campaign. Well, when you say test, what it means is that, we don't have a target of a deposit we want to base. Basically, again, we were stuck knowing, we don't know what the bedrock was like. So we had to drill many places to have an idea. Geophysics, yes, gives us an indication, but you need actual rock to be able to interpret geophysics. So if you see a pink blob on a map, as you can see behind here, it doesn't mean anything until you find out what that pink blob is, as for what type of rock it is. So, so we had anomalies, and we had to drill these anomalies. So we drilled a bit all over the place. Of course, we drilled where we did trenching. We did find gold. And we followed up the structure that was there, and we also drilled other places. Now, this was an amazing year for a lot of companies for drilling. And when you have companies like, for example, again, like Newfound Gold, which is doing, 400,000 meters of drilling, everybody, it was a record year for drilling for a lot of people. And the labs were a tsunami effect, just got invaded the labs. So just to give you a context, we finished our coring back in October, and we're still waiting results from some of those October. But anyways, we sent things to another lab, which is a newer lab in Timmins, Ontario, which they said, well, we could do this in the time, which standard time, few weeks. Well, we're still waiting them too. So everybody's got the same thing. So all the labs, they're swamped. Some of them are missing some of the equipment, the test equipment, and some of the bottles, little things like this. So, we're just waiting. But still, we got about more than 2/3 of the results in, but we're only going to talk about it when the geologist, Jean-Bernard geologist, has time to compile everything and, say something about it. But when we saw visible gold, there was no doubt about it. We saw some visible gold in one drill, in drill hole number 8. And, with quick analysis showed that it was gold. So yeah, we talked about that. But the good thing about the drilling, again, the drilling, basically, it was better than an X-ray. We actually got to open up the ground and see what's happening under there. And our knowledge now of this ground is really like, we have a knowledge now that just wasn't there for the past 100 years. So we're excited about that. And what the trenching and the drilling also showed us, and it showed us, and this is an important part of discovery, that what was happening under there, well, now we found out is that in the trenching revealed what's called anticline structures. What it is that all this, what we're seeing is a sandwich bands, like Napolitan ice cream, basically up on its side vertically like this, of strips basically of volcanic sedimentary interspaced with quartz veins. And we found that gold is found in the contacts in quartz veins, in the contacts basically of sedimentary and volcanic rock. And the formation of this is this. What an anticline is that when for example, as indicated by the fault line, where you have two geological units come in and smash into each other, sometimes you have a folding that happens. So all the layers get pushed up on the side like this, vertical side. And that's what we're seeing when we're doing this. So obviously we see some gold that came from some of the anticline structures. And this, here's another example of what an anticline structure, when you see an anticline structure, eventually, here we're seeing basically what was an eroded part of an anticline structure. The top part, which would form a dome, is called basically an antifold. An antifold, or the axis of an antifold. And this is this is another exciting discovery. The geology model is all coming together nicely. And here's an example along the Giraud Creek on our property. We have a nice cutout of an anticline. Now, antiforms are really important because they're stress marks, and often stress marks, it's where there was cracks and fluidization of the quartz, and it's often where gold ends up accumulating. And so our geologists describe this as saddle reef formation. And why that's important is that around the world, when you have a saddle reef formation, the gold, so even though you find traces of gold in the limbs of the anticline, the antiform, but the dome of the antiform, the fold of it, under different layers of the dome, that's usually where you have pockets of gold. And we even propose that some of the big nuggets, the reason why there's gold and nugget gold is that maybe when there was a stress mark, when this was formed, there was an accumulative pockets of gold there. So that's the model we're looking at. So here it is, folks. This is a first interpretation of a geological model of where most likely the placer gold came from. So we're proposing that this is a saddle reef formation. And what the gold that we've drilled and we've trenched so far is when basically we were able to sort of drill into the limbs of the anticline limbs right here, gold found in the contacts right here. Now, our proposition is that there could be pockets of gold in the folds of the anticline. Now, the press release we did before Christmas, we found a nice outcrop of an anticline here, of an antiform, the top of it. And we've collected 60 samples of just one section here. And now we want to identify at surface on our property, everywhere we can find an axis of an antiform at surface. So that's what we're looking for. And once we find this and we sample the top of that, if there's gold, if it seems to be gold bearing, then a follow-up drill results would be basic to drill down the axis of the antifold or the saddle reef. And hopefully in the saddle reef, in domes, we might hit concentrations of gold. So that's the plan. And it gives you an idea of what happened here in this nice, wonderful picture is that, you know, the placer channel is at the bottom of the valley, covered by glacial till overburden. And what happened was this was probably a much higher mountain range of different layers of folded anticlines. Now, this is it's a very simplified presentation, but there's many of these folds that go up the valley wall. Okay, so there was an erosion that happened. It eroded, liberated the gold, perhaps even gold nuggets that was formed right in the fold in the axis of the antifold, and it fell down the valley, formed a placer deposit at the bottom of the valley, and then each ice age glaciation, which the ice age basically came from the movement was more southward, and we could see it from the streaks, the glaciation strikes that we see all on the rocks, on the outcropping rock, very indicative. It just brought everything down, and it was to form a placer deposit with a heavy till overburden, and yeah. So that's the model. So this is exciting. So now we have to follow up this. So I just can't wait for the snow to melt. You know, we were lucky. Basically, snow was late this last year. We were able to work way into really into December, and our geologists on my team, we found great structures of antiforms, which again we collect 60 samples, which we sent to another lab that says it's going to be faster, but still waiting. So we're going to follow up. You know, we can't wait to go back. We want to trench some of the axes of the antiforms, and hopefully that there's gold. You know. We did one report, which there was one sample, which would happen to be just at the top of the antiform that we took the INRS 2 years ago, which had, 500, like half a gram just from an outcrop side of the road, which cut into an axis of an antiform. So now we just decide to follow this. So now we're following each outcropping antiform that we can find. We're going to sample it. If there's gold, well, basically that'll be a target for future drilling. So the next property was, some people saw the news this morning. I'll come to that, but that's from the MEGANTIC property. Now this is starting to look pretty good. Pretty excited about this. The MEGANTIC property is the other section that was an active placer mining operation zone in the past. The Mining Brook, hence the name. Mining Brook, Ditton, Chessam, and more recently, wasn't into operation. Well, there was Victoria River, but the Bergeron, which was explored by Noranda Exploration in the late 80s. And there's a Clinton mine, which is Fan Camp. In fact, it's doing a drill program right here. This is polymetallic. But again, what we like about, again, the MEGANTIC property, same thing. Another section which was totally overlooked. It has a major fault. It looks a lot like what we're seeing in the Beauce. A major fault line. The fault line is a contact between two geological formations of volcanic rock, the Saint-Victor, and the Clinton formation of sedimentary. They're meeting, and they seem to coincide at the point of where they meet. There's placer gold in the rivers, and so that's our interest there. And so we started doing sampling there, and on one property last year, we hit 10 grams per ton. What's 10 grams per ton? I don't know how well you can see it here, but there you go. This was the sample we had from the Chessam property. We just one scoop of sand and has all this gold in it. Anyways, we went back, we sampled it, we sampled there. From there, we only got we got 3 results that had gold in it. But there was some fouchite. Fouchite is a greenish mineral, often associated with a Holtz gold deposit. So again, there's something going on here. But we had a great surprise. Because we sampled a few of the sandbanks that are along the fault line that we know to be close to the fault line. And one place we sampled, right here, the Ditton property. This is a sand deposit. What piqued our interest because of the sand deposit, which is 2 kilometers long, 600 meters wide. There was one overburden drilling, which was done again in the 80s. Remember what I said? When the area became available for claiming, there was a claiming rush, and there was a rush of companies that did work. Then it all stopped. Anyways, one was cash exploration back in, I believe, 87. They did one overburden drilling, which is like 400 meters west of this quarry here, but in the same sand deposit. And they had like 60 gold grains in one drill hole, and they only did one drill hole, 60 gold grains. So here we go. We go back, and to our astonishment, every sample we took has gold in it. And so, I mean, this is just like outstanding. Again, a lot of the gold grains are pristine, indicating very little travel. The Bella fault line, as far as the way it's indicated on maps, seems to be really close by. This is an exciting find. And, I can't wait to go back to see if this 2 kilometers is, if it's really homogeneous. That'd be amazing. What's probably more surprising is the operator of this sand quarry here. I mean, look at the big hole he has. We have gold all around the perimeter with a big hole in the middle. So you just imagine, I don't know how much gold was actually shipped out with each truckload of sand. Most of the sand was used as abrasive throughout Southern Quebec on the roads for this winter. So it's just mind-boggling. So again, we can't wait to go back here and see what's happening. I was happy to announce this morning. That's the press release we have this morning. So we're definitely going to go back. Now I've asked basically to measure so we can have basically an estimated tonnage, a grade. That'd be nice. But hopefully it's something interesting, and who knows? Is there the potential to even have a surface mine here? Perhaps. We want to know, and we're definitely going back to find out. Yeah. Again, being in Southern Quebec, social acceptability is really important because a lot of the land, especially in the northern part, it's private property, and you need written permission from property owners to be able to do your exploration, which so far it's been going really well. we had everybody's cooperation, which is fine. Everybody signed, which is great. There's a very high social acceptability for the region. And again, it's not like that. That was we had to earn that. We earned that by being present. We earned that by, I've had many, kitchen table discussions with people. Unfortunately, COVID sort of stopped that the past 2 years, but as soon as I can, we start up again. It's keeping everybody informed, doing the town meetings, keeping the town councils informed of what we're doing, just showing step by step. And, and people are curious. They want to know, is there gold in my town? Is there gold on my land? It costs them $0 to find out. I mean, it's, the cost is borne by us shareholders. So there is an incentive for them, to find out. And so far, well, in the Megantic part, it's a bit easier because a lot of the land which we're looking at is forestry owned by Domtar, and we do have access, full access, which is fine. So we don't have anything really to hamper our exploration, which is good. But again, that's just because that we keep people informed, and we're present. And also, as much as possible, local talent we take, for when we need the, goods and services. Priority is always local, all the time. Most of the guys that work for us in the Beauce, all live around there. Even some of them were passionate prospectors, and they kept showing me all the nice nuggets, which I found before used to find annoying. But I said, what, these guys are passionate. Let's hire them. And they're the best work hands, technical hands that we have, basically, are the prospectors. So again, just a quick presentation here is that, like I said, we went public 3 years ago. We're a spin out of HBQ Silicon, which Bernard here is president, CEO, and chairman. So that's we had to do the spin out to give value to this great project, which we have now, as you can see. And that's it. So if any questions, I could try to answer some questions.